Hello, hello, hello. Today is Thursday, and it is time for Let's Talk Power Live. I know I look a little different today. Today I got a little baseball cap on. It's a story. Anyway, when you have a bad hair day, you kind of got to go in a different direction. We're going in a different direction. Welcome to September. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I am Dr. Tangi, and we are here together again for another session of a Let's Talk Power Live. I like to start off always being thankful for something. And today I am thankful for the one, always opportunity to be here with you, but also just celebrated another session of the DC Jazz Festival. It's in its 21st year, and we, as a family, with our great group of friends, have been enjoying it for the last several years. I don't even know how long now, but every year it just gets better and better and better. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity to have been able to enjoy the festival. It was in DC, came with some interesting visuals, shall I say? I'll leave it at that. But the festival itself was fantastic. Got to see Ron Carter, 88 years old, and the man plays like he is in his 20s or 30s. Got to see Branford Marsalis, which was fantastic. A wonderful tribute to a great jazz musician. And then we got to see someone new. Jasmia was her name. The entire lineup is just fantastic. Every year just gets better. So I am thankful for that. Also thankful for having had a day off, doing a lot of work and have a day off. Looking forward to getting back into the groove of work. People say it's a grind. For me, it's a groove. And I just want you to always take time to be thankful. So what are you thankful for today? Always stop, always be intentional, and be thankful for something. So who are we? Who are we? Who am I? I told you who I am. I told you I'm going to tell you what we do right now, so you can see what we are all about. So I lead an organization, Liaison Educational Partners, where we support schools, districts, and states. And we also work with organizations. And we sit at this intersection of curriculum, of instruction, and of culture, because we understand that the breakdown of any one of those three is ultimately the breakdown of all of the three. And we do all of that through the lens of power. People ask me all the time, why do you talk about power? Power is a real thing. Power happens. It is a filter. It is a lens. It is present in every situation, in every relationship. And we don't talk about it in operational, in concrete ways in schools, in districts, and how the use of power that adults have, how it influences the advancement of the relationships with their students, how it impacts instruction, and how ultimately it impacts whether or not kids learn some stuff and learn how to do some stuff. Power is real. And for me and for my organization, it's really important that we help learn educators at every level, from the highest quote unquote district, state, local, school, to the most small, understand that you have power and you use it. And the way you use it impacts the quality of the education that students deserve. So that is who we are, and that is what we do. What do we offer? We offer book studies. We offer professional development services. We offer thought partnership. We are in the business of making sure every student has an educator and a leader equipped with the mindset, the skill set, the tools and resources, so students get the excellent education they deserve. I always invite you to take a look at our website and check us out so you can see what we do. I'm just looking for the website right here. Let's see if that's a website. Yeah, there it is. There's the website. Go ahead and check out our website. You can see what we do. You can see a full list of our partners. We would welcome the opportunity to partner with you. So that's how you can do that. So people, and I ask you every week, do you have a copy of the book? I'm going to ask you about that. I'm going to ask you, do you have a copy of your book? Everything I talk about in our sessions comes out of the book. I give you teasers every week, and they're based upon the information and the tools and the exercises and the scenarios that are located in the book. So I want to make sure you get a copy of your book as well. So you can see how to get that. Right there is that is the QR code right there, but here's the book link so that you can actually get a copy of the book itself. This will give you the link right to Amazon. I forgot to ask you, have you subscribed to this channel yet? We are a new channel. We are growing, and we are looking forward to your partnership. Power is real in education, just like it's real every place else. And this is the one place where we are talking about power in a very specific operational way relative to instruction, in culture, and curriculum. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Please like today's session and ultimately share it with somebody else. Those are my asks right now. And the last thing I talk about is I always want to make sure I'm clear regarding what power is in terms of my language of instructional power. Instructional power can be understood as an educator's use of their state, district, and building ascribed authority to afford or constrain an excellent education that a student deserves. It can afford or constrains access to the excellent education that students deserve. And I laid the whole framework out in our book. So go ahead. That's what it's all about. So we're into a new month. And in case you missed the last couple of weeks, I just kind of want to give you a refresher on what we talked about. I decided, for a lot of reasons, to take a step into my past. And not really my past. I can't say it's my past. I decided to give some real specific and direct focus on middle school because it is the educational space that is least understood. And I unfortunately have to say least liked by a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And therefore, it gets the least amount of attention. As an educator, I spent the bulk of my time as a middle school instructor, a middle school teacher, and a middle school coach. Did coaching on elementary and high school as well, but spent the bulk of our time in the area of the 6 to 8 realm. And I felt it was really important to lean into that area. Again, for the reasons I stated, least understood and sometimes least liked, hate to say it, and then least enjoyed. So we did that. So what have we learned? We learned, first of all, that middle school deserves more than they get. They're getting the least amount of attention, but they deserve more than they get. They deserve more autonomy. They deserve more understanding. The adults really need to understand what's happening, and so they need to get more. We also talked about differentiation. They really do understand that differentiation leads to greater engagement. It leads to deeper belonging, and it intensifies and increases the amount of cognitive demand, what we call rigor, the demand on the cognition. And then it really, choice and relevancy is a critical aspect. And we're going to talk more about that in a few moments. And then instruction aimed at the mythical middle. Everything gets sort of stabled out across the middle. And what we have learned is that when education is at the middle, you're only reaching maybe a third, maybe a fifth of what's happening within the classroom. So our middle schoolers need a lot more than what we're giving. So I want to keep going and kind of get us caught up and think about where we're headed this month, but in the school year. So the rules are backfiring. They're backfiring. They may have already started to backfire, but it's early in the year, and we all know that the beginning of the school year, a couple of days, couple of weeks spent on culture setting, spent on trying to make sure that the rules are set, that the students know exactly what to expect, where to go, how to do it, how to walk in hallways, all of those things. But in a short time, you're going to find that unfortunately, the rules, if they have not already started, that they're going to backfire. And they're going to backfire primarily with our older kids. And they may start backfiring with some of the younger kids. I hear things with the younger grades are getting a little dicey these days too. But I'm focusing on our folks in the middle. And there are a lot of reasons why. And I can sort of fall on the knife and say, when I started teaching, I started the year with the rules already in place. I had my list, I had my chart, I had all of my, things on the wall to help kids know what to do and how to do things, what was expected. It was pre-made. And the premise is they need the rules right away so they know what to do and they know what to expect, right? I had my anchor charts up, everything was set up, highly organized. And then things began to break down. There were cracks in the armor, cracks in the chain, all of the things began to break down because of the way in which the items were set up. And so what's happening now? Let's talk about the state of affairs right now, middle school, particularly the secondary area. What we know right now is that engagement drops. Between fifth grade and say sixth grade, there's a significant drop in student sense of engagement. It drops from 74% down to 56%. And by eighth grade, around 30 some percent, maybe a little bit higher, of eighth graders feel disengaged. There's a loss of connection. Students feel very disconnected when they get in middle school. And as I've said in prior sessions, that what begins to happen is because young people come into middle school from a place where they primarily had about 3 teachers, and they get into middle school and they have, 5, 6 teachers because there's a teacher for each content area, plus all of their specials and other areas as well. They begin to feel a sense of disconnection. The other thing we learn is that there are discipline disparities. The disparities in discipline begin to escalate. What happens and when we say, and I'm saying but when we say discipline disparity, here's what I mean. I mean the racial disparity in referrals. And we say discipline, I am going to be calling it the punishment of children. The meting out of punishment is disproportionate along racial and gender lines. Research has shown us that Black students, African American students in particular, are 3 to 4 times more likely to get a referral than their white and Asian counterparts for the exact same behavior. So if a student with a hat on is running down a hallway and that student happens to be a Black student, an African American student, that student is 3 to 4 times more likely to be have their hat taken from them, just give me the hat, and or sent to the office with a referral. The same behavior with a student who be considered white or Asian, what will most likely happen with that student is they will be asked to take your hat off. There's a big disparity between the two. And we also see that there's an identity and then there's an agency loss. A lot of that happens at the middle school because, again, people don't understand what middle school is all about, and they don't understand the biology that's happening. There's a lot of biology going on that creates this wave and often feels like you're riding a roller coaster. And that is indicative to what's happening inside the brain of an adolescent that really kicks into gear when they get to middle school. So that's the state of affairs right now. So what actually is happening? What's happening right now? And I've said this in prior sessions, the prefrontal cortex is under development. This is the second largest brain shift that a person's going to undergo, happens in the adolescent. So yes, if it feels like you're on a roller coaster, because you're on a roller coaster. It feels like the wild, wild west out there because the brain is shifting gears literally. There's shaving, there is pruning, there's just a lot happening, right? The other thing that's happening is that the brain, that young people in this stage are wired for belonging and autonomy. They crave it, they need it. You see this moving away from adult influence towards peer influence. They're in this act of becoming. They're becoming something, and they have to continue to move away from the adults in their lives so that they can become an adult themselves later on. So, as a parent, as an educator, you see this reliance on my next point. One of my other points is going to be about this idea of becoming closer to their peers. Their peer connections are survival. That's why we see the importance of their relationships, critical relationships. Their friendships are critical to them, and their friends have a higher influence on them than their parents do sometimes. You've seen it. We've been in schools. You and I, we have been in schools, and we've seen a young person who has been, quote unquote, a good student get connected to a student who we label as a bad student, and we see behavioral shifts. This is a factor of the need to belong to something. That is why the culture is so critical to our students' development. But the other thing that's happened is there is a heightened sense of fairness. Young people are really keen into what is fair and what is just. And when they see unjust actions, they're going to notice it. When they see a teacher, I had a very simple example. My son had to go to the restroom. He was in an after school program and he needed to go to the restroom. And he raised his hand to use the restroom. And the teacher said, "You can go in 5 minutes." No problem. Another little girl of a different racial group raised her hand and said she needed to go to the bathroom. And the teacher said, "Yes, you may go." When my son spoke up and advocated for himself, he was accused of being aggressive, and he was accused of being defiant. Other students in the class asked him, "Why didn't she let you go? What's going on?" Students notice differences. They notice the simple thing of letting one kid go to the bathroom and another kid not go to the bathroom, letting one kid get out of their seat for something and another kid having to take a different route. They notice the fairness. They notice the consistency or the inconsistency during this time. Therefore, it's really critical for you as the leader in the classroom and the leader in the building to maintain consistency. You don't have to be rigid. You just got to be consistent. And if you have a set of quote unquote rules and you have to quote unquote break the rule for a kid, then there's got to be an explanation so that you avoid favoritism. Kids are keen into favoritism. That's what this is about. So let's talk about this. Compliance does not equal the culture. Okay. Order, it isn't learning. Rules aren't belonging. You need order. Kids need to be safe. Let's be clear. Kids have got to be safe. This is not what this is about. So I want to put that out there right now. But just because you have order, it doesn't mean kids are learning. Our young people need more than rules. They need more agency opportunities. They need to build their agency. And there has to be a building wide understanding of what student self advocacy looks like. And a lot of times there isn't. So, number one, compliance does not equal the culture. Just because you've got order doesn't mean that you've got learning, and rules do not equal belonging. Next, power protection equals pushing out. A lot of times, adults will protect their position and they will hold on to rules because it is efficient and it makes life move faster and easier. They hold on to it because they privilege their own comfort, right? An adult's going to hold on to what makes them comfortable as opposed to what is in the best interest of a child. Any leader, and if you are a leader watching, and I hope that you are, any leader watching who knows what happens when you try to institute a new set of policies with their related practices that truly are in the best interest of children, you're going to have somebody in your building push back, not because it's a bad thing, but it's good. They're going to push back because it's going to disrupt their comfort. Think about it this way. When you change a certain group's planning period, it disrupts their comfort. If you put the students who need the most support in a particular subject earlier in the day, and put the students who need quote unquote a little bit less attention, we all know that, and you put them at the end of the day, you're going to have teachers push back on that because they are used to a certain pattern in the building. And when you push back on that pattern and when you try to disrupt that pattern, adults push back because they want to maintain their comfort. They are comfortable being in their spaces, doing things their way. And so a lot of times adults are going to do that as opposed to allowing for student agency building. And also, they're going to push back because they don't know how to build agency. They don't know how to do it. That's some of the work that we come in, and we can help you build your student agency in your building. We can talk about that as well. And then the most important thing, though, is power sharing is about partnership. We want to make sure that there's power sharing in buildings so that young people have the opportunities to build their agency. That's what really, really matters. Young people need that. They don't need more rules. They know the rules of school. They know they got to walk in lines that are quiet. They know how to behave in lunchrooms. They know what the rules of school are. What they need is opportunities to build agency. So let's talk about some power moves. I'm going to give you 3 quick power moves so that you know what's going to work. Number 1, revisit the rules together. Even if you've already set them, invite your students to revise or add. Have a real conversation, not some cursory what works, what doesn't, but really allow them to contemplate and be critical thinkers around the rules. Why do you have to have the ones that you have? And here's the thing, you may have some non-negotiables, but name them as non-negotiables and explain what you mean by the idea of a non-negotiable, why you have non-negotiables, and why the ones you want to be non-negotiables need to be that way. And it can't just be because the principal said so or the district said so. You have to have a real reason as to why something needs to be a non-negotiable. Next, co-create some accountability. It's really important to allow young people, particularly in this middle school and up into high school, to really be partners with you in the accountability. So we want to get some partnership, not just permission, real, authentic partnership. Allow them to hold one another accountable. Got a quick story for you. I taught eighth grade when I worked in another state, and I had a teaching partner. I did the ELA and social studies, and he did the math and science. And there was a group of boys. They had grown up together, and one of the boys struggled more academically. He needed more support academically, but he was not willing to allow himself to be vulnerable. So when situations in the classroom got tough for him, he acted out. And his friends were really shy about learning how to check him and put him in his place. And it really did impact the learning environment quite a bit. And finally, I had to make a decision to help him learn how to manage himself and allow his friends to learn how to manage themselves in relationship to him. So we made an agreement, and I agreed to my partner and I agreed that he would have the bulk of his classrooms in his math and science room. He got all of the instruction that he needed, all of the materials, and then we sat down with his friends and we said, look, you guys know the importance of being able to learn in a respectful environment, an environment that is conducive. And they said, yeah, but we don't know what to do. So we devised a plan to help them feel secure enough in themselves to speak up. That was the accountability. We co-created an accountability system that allowed them to get the excellent education they deserved, while at the same time checking their friend to keep him from disrupting and derailing the learning environment. That's what that's about. And then I want you, and you're going to need to be willing to remove things that don't work. If something is not serving you, be willing enough to ask yourself, are you privileging your comfort with a specific rule or idea over what they need? It's really important. Be willing to remove it. And that's your own vulnerability. That's you stepping past your power protection. Ask yourself, why am I holding on to this thing, this idea, this concept? Who is it serving? Is it serving me or is it serving them? That's our power move for today. Those are your three. So let's talk about our recap. This has been a quick session. We've got some great ideas about why your rules aren't working. Here is what is happening. Here's what we talked about. Data tells us that rigid rules do not work. If they did, we would not have the belonging stats that we have. That 20+% drop in belonging. We wouldn't have the eighth graders with 34% of them not being connected to their work. We would not be having the disproportionate application of punishment rules for one group versus another. So the data is telling us that our rigid rules are not working. The other thing we talked about today is that the brain really does crave autonomy. Our young people at this age, because of what's happening inside their brain, they really do need the opportunity to build their autonomy. That's what we talked about. The other thing we talked about is adults often protect their power instead of sharing it. Adults lean into their power protecting because it serves them, doesn't always serve their kids. But we also know that partnership builds agency. It opens the door for there to be authentic agency building. So that's what we discussed today. So here are some gems for your journey. Number one, our power tool. I'm going to keep making this tool available to you, building authentic student agency, knowing what it looks like, having a broad-based but unified understanding of what student agency is and how to authentically build it is going to be critical. That's why I offer this tool every week. And then I'm so excited about this. Instructional Power 101. That is our on-demand course. You have control over your own professional development with this course. On demand, you walk away knowing your power. You walk away knowing how to disrupt the automatic responses to those triggers. You learn how to identify those triggers, and then you are able to revolutionize the culture in your classroom. But here's what I also think you should do: grab a colleague. You don't have to learn by yourself. Grab a colleague, come in community, and go ahead and get your Let's Talk Power. Let's get your Instructional Power 101, and then get your book. Go ahead, get your book. And when you get your book, take a picture of it and tag us with hashtag Instructional Power. So that's what we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining. And next week, we're going to be talking about a little secret that your middle schoolers wish you knew. You're going to want to join us next week. So in the meantime, hashtag Instructional Power, like, subscribe, and share this link. And we can't wait to see you next week for Let's Talk Power Live.